Good evening, Dice Tower friends. I'm Mike DiLisio, your host for tonight's Dice Tower Daily Chat, our lovely little chance to have a little bit of positivity, at least here at the end of the day. Depending on where you might be watching this, it might be a different time of day, but I am very, very happy to introduce our special guest, so I'm not going to do my usual long-winded intro, and I'm just going to instead introduce Jamey Stegmaier of Stonemeyer Games. Thank you so much for coming on, Jamey. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great. Yeah, thank you, Mike.
It's something, I don't know that we've chatted in person ever. I don't think we have.
I don't think we have, yeah.
But we've interacted a little bit online, and so this is really, I've been looking forward to this because it's been well noted, Jamey, not just by myself, but by others around me, that I tend to enjoy games that are designed by you, and I may take a little bit of teasing about this. Apparently, you're not allowed to like a designer's games. I never knew, but anyway. So yes, my number one game is Scythe, and
oh really?
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah. I absolutely adore Scythe. So I'm sure that there'll be many questions about that and other games as well. But did you? Everybody here knows who you are, but if you want to just give a little quick introduction in case anybody maybe isn't as familiar.
I like to assume that not many people know me. I know there are people that subscribe to our e-newsletter, but there's a lot of gamers in the world. And so for those of you who know or don't know me, I run a company called Stonemeyer Games in St. Louis, Missouri. And we make games like Viticulture, Scythe, like you mentioned, the recent Wingspan and Tapestry. Some games designed by me, some games designed by other people. I write a crowdfunding and entrepreneurship blog, and I have a much smaller YouTube channel than Dice Tower where I talk about my favorite mechanisms in board games. So I like to focus on the positive, kind of like what Mike led with today when I talk about games. So yeah.
Which is obviously in line with what the daily chats are all about, which is yet another reason why I'm thrilled you're here. You've actually done some segments for the Dice Tower, haven't you, in the past?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, Tom asked me if I'd be interested in making like a 2-minute segment about crowdfunding. And so for a long time, I filmed a bunch of 2-minute little bursts about a very specific topic. And I think you put them in the Board Game Breakfast show for a long time. And then I ran out of topics. So, yeah.
You know, it's interesting because that is one of the things you're known for is kind of giving kind of hints and advice for crowdfunding and Kickstarter, I think specifically. But your recent projects haven't gone that route. And so do you still kind of feel this like you have your finger on the pulse of Kickstarter? Has things changed at all, do you think? Or is it still pretty much the same model?
Yeah, I think a lot's changed. I love seeing the innovation from creators that have been on the platform the last few years. Because my last project on there was actually Scythe in 2015. Okay. So as a creator, I'm still an avid backer there, and I still follow projects. I still learn a lot as a creator and an entrepreneur from Kickstarter creators. But there's a lot of stuff. People now ask me like specific things about Kickstarter's platform that you only know if you're a creator. Like when you're creating a project, there's certain things that you really only know if you're actively creating projects. So I don't know those things, but I know them from an outside observer.
Right. Well, I'm going to kind of look through some questions here. We've got a lot of people in the chat, as always. We have some of our returning favorites. We have a lot of people that come almost every night. So, awesome. Oh, well, here we go. Let's put you on the spot right away. Halo X30 says, this isn't a question. This is just a statement, a dream, perhaps. Would be cool if Jamey would make a surprise announcement here. I hope the Tapestry expansion. So are you going to give us some kind of big scoop? Do you have, or do you just have anything that maybe you can tease for the pipeline of Stonemeyer?
Well, I will. That's a big surprise announcement. I probably won't make a big surprise announcement, but I will mention that today one of the steps that I do in leading up to an announcement is that I have to make a sell sheet that I send to distributors.
Okay.
And so today was that step in the Tapestry expansion where I had to sit down and write down all the specs and the components for this expansion in a way that I can present it to distributors to kind of pitch it to them so they can let me know how many copies they think, and not that I should make, because we're already in the progress of making it, but how many they want to buy directly from us in China.
Oh,
So yeah, it's
fantastic.
yeah, yeah. So it's pretty well under production now. I think it'll be a fall release for this
Okay.
year.
Hey, I'm going to take
Yeah,
that as a scoop. I'm going to count that as a surprise
sure.
announcement,
Yeah.
just because I'm excited about it. I did like Tapestry quite a bit, and more Tapestry makes me happy. Let's
Awesome.
see
Yeah.
what we have here. We've got a lot of people just saying hello, and so now I'm just trying to find a question that I'm notoriously bad about staying on top of. I'm usually like 20 minutes behind, so
Oh yeah.
we're gonna find a question here. It may just take me a moment.
No, I do while you're looking for that, I
Yes,
do a weekly Facebook live chat, and so I do get the same thing where I'm fascinated by the comments, but I scroll down and try to get to the questions, and sometimes
yes.
I miss them and try to find them. You gotta hunt them down.
This
Yeah.
is this is what I do here. Yes. Ah, okay. Here's a question from Kabuki Kid, who is on many of the Dice Tower chats. And Kabuki asks,
Okay.
Jamey, where is your cat? We demand a cat appearance.
I actually have two cats, and right now they're you can kind of if I don't know how big people can see my screen, but the cat feeder is behind me here, and the chair
Ah,
that they usually sit on is right there. But I think they're off doing their own thing. At night they're pretty quiet. Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have
I
any
am.
pets, Mike?
I do. I have one cat right now, and the only reason
Uh-huh.
we just have the one cat is because this particular cat won't play nicely with other cats. So she's of an advanced age. We obviously hope for her to live as long and happy and healthy a life as possible. But when she does
Yeah.
eventually move on, we will probably try to get a pair of cats because
Okay. Yeah.
I like having a pair at least. But right now, that's not in the cards because Ralph won't hear of it. And I did say she. It's a female
Uh-huh.
cat named Ralph. My
Okay.
stepson named her when he was very young, and so we just went with it.
Uh-huh.
So Nathan Bredfeld asked, Jamey, how did you come to decide to stop using Kickstarter, and how has that worked out for you?
Yeah, so that I'll try to answer that succinctly because it's a big question.
Sure.
But the short answer is I mean, it's a bunch of different factors that added up, but
Okay.
a few of them are one. There was a lot at risk in terms of fulfillment. Basically, there was one thing that almost went really wrong with the Scythe fulfillment.
Okay.
We mostly delivered it early to people, like people in Australia got it early, the US got it early, Canada got it early, and in Europe, a company that I had worked with and trusted fulfillment in the past really messed up. Basically, they risked kind of hundreds of thousands of dollars
Oh.
of product for us when they tried to fulfill it in boxes that just weren't even taped shut. It was a weird thing that happened that I just didn't expect, and I realized. Um, that was one of many factors that made me realize I needed to take a different approach. There was also, yeah, there was a bunch of other stuff
Sure.
happening, but that was one of the big things. I kind of realized a big risk. And so I approach a lot of things at Stonemeyer Games as an experiment. So we kind of said, why don't we try not using Kickstarter for a little while and see how
Right.
it goes? And what we found was that not that we could do things better, but uh, we I found that it was freeing to just be able to make stuff that I really believed in and that I thought people would like without essentially accepting loans from people in advance. Now, I
Right.
love Kickstarter. I don't say that in a really bad way, but it's freeing for me to announce something like Wingspan or announce something like Tapestry and just have it ready for people to buy right away and to have it delivered to their house a few weeks later. That to me is really exciting. So I love that my company basically we've gotten to a point where we're able to afford that and be able to
Right.
take some risk, and I'm able to gauge demand a lot better than I could before. So I've enjoyed the freedom of being able to make stuff that I believe in with and being able to deliver it to people right away, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
It is interesting. I think that as gamers, at least hobby gamers, people that kind of would be watching a show like this, for example, we've kind of
Yeah.
gotten used to this idea. And I don't want to speak for everybody by any means. I'll speak for myself. I've gotten used to
Okay.
the idea of finding out about a game, getting excited about a game, putting my money towards that game, basically buying the game, and then not seeing it for potentially a year or more. And so it is almost shifting that paradigm where you get a game right away. You know what I mean? Or relatively soon. It's the exception, it seems like, to the rule. Now, there's still, of course, normal distribution and you know, some of the larger established companies that have been around, Ravensburger or whatever the case may be, where they still kind of have that more traditional. But even some of the larger companies have gone that Kickstarter route. So it's almost different the way it used to be, if that makes sense. And I don't think I said that very well, but
absolutely. Yeah.
Dead Squirrel asks, why is Euphoria so tragically overlooked?
Yeah, well, Euphoria is a weird one. If you were around when we had the Kickstarter for that back in 2013, there was a lot of great buzz around it. People were very excited about it. It came out, it got a lot of great buzz then, and then it died off for a while. And I don't exactly know why. Maybe we didn't support it with an expansion soon enough.
Yeah.
There were some balance issues with a few of the recruits in the original version of the game. So maybe balance issues deterred people from getting to the table. But I think maybe the biggest thing with Euphoria, Mike, have you played Euphoria?
I have. I've played it. You know, it's interesting. I've only played that kind of second edition that came out that had the game trays, and I got the expansion at the same time. So I've only played it with the kind of changes that you made to it.
Yeah, no, I think the changes are positive. I didn't even design the expansion. I had to hand it off to somebody else and say, I'm out of ideas. You did something cool with it. But one of the biggest things I found with the game is that it is fairly difficult to teach. It's not a complex game, but there are a lot of interconnected systems. So if you're trying to get it to the table with new people, even I have found, like, I'd rather teach viticulture. I'd rather teach Wingspan, because I can get people, even Scythe, I can get people into a game of Scythe in like 5 minutes.
Right.
Whereas Euphoria, I have to explain how this area works. And for me to fully explain that, I have to explain how this thing works and this thing works. So I was almost maybe trying to do too much. But I think if you can get over that hurdle,
right,
and especially if you're playing with the same people, if you're not having to reteach it a lot,
right,
I think you can have a lot of fun with it. Yeah.
It's interesting that I think I came into that game later. I played Euphoria after I'd played Viticulture and Scythe and Charterstone, and so to me, when I played it, it didn't feel the same. I mean, not good or bad. That's not a value judgment. It's just, it felt like it was coming from a different designer in some ways. There were some things I noticed, like I do, and if I'm off base here, then feel free to tell me. But I feel like a lot of your games have this kind of efficiency puzzle that are at least part of the design. And I think it's there too, but it seems to be a little bit more obscured in some ways. And I don't know, again, maybe that's just my experience, but it just felt completely different. I like it quite a bit, but it just feels very different to me than your other games. So I don't know if that's an experience other people have said as well. But
I think I've heard that, definitely.
Kabuki Kid, this is a classic Kabuki question. I think she asked it of all the guests. What is the game that got you into the modern hobby, and what was the game that you loved when you were a kid?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Two good questions. I'll answer two games for the modern hobby. Like many people, Catan, Settlers of Catan brought me back into the hobby as a post-collegiate adult. And then what really took it to the next level after that was Agricola. My co-founder, Alan, was the guy in the group who learned Agricola and taught it to a bunch of different people. And that really opened my eyes to worker placement and all the amazing things that Agricola is about. So for a long time, we just played Agricola for a couple of years. And then I expanded into a lot of other games. And then as a kid, one of the turning points for me was Scotland Yard.
Oh, okay.
Scotland Yard, I think, was ahead of its time. It's a game that I still love today. Like, I have my childhood copy on the shelf over here, and it makes my top 10 almost every year.
Right.
It's just such a beautiful, easy game to learn, and that was a game that I played a lot as a kid. Have you played that one, Mike?
I have played Scotland Yard, and I agree. I think it still holds up to this day. I don't think it's doing anything much different than other kind of hidden movement games do now. I mean, really, it kind of, I think, set the standard, it still feels current to me to this day.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have access to these exact numbers, so just maybe a ballpark. But at this point, how many copies of Wingspan have been printed or sold, and when is the next printing expected to hit the shelves?
Well, Mike, why don't you show off your guessing skills? How many copies of Wingspan do you think we've made? How many are in circulation, do you think? And I'll pull up the exact number while you're thinking about
Okay,
it.
how many do I think are in circulation right now?
In all languages, yeah.
Oh,
Over a
boy.
dozen languages.
I'm going to be so far off here. I'm going to say 225,000 copies.
I appreciate the precision of that guess. The number is far more than I'd ever thought I would have sold of any game. So far, just after a year in release, Wingspan has over 434,000 copies in circulation.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
That's,
I love that.
Do
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I that's just, that number is mind blowing. Do you remember the first time you played Wingspan?
I do. Yeah, it's a Gen Con.
Okay. And was it a formal pitch at that point, or were you just like getting a chance to play?
Yeah, it was a formal pitch.
Okay.
Yeah, Elizabeth had, I think she had submitted the game to us, and Gen Con was coming up, so we asked her to sign up for a 30-minute slot and show it to us. It was, at the time, there was no player mat, there was no real action system to it. It was just, you were trying to play as many birds as possible.
Okay.
And once you played the 10th bird, 8th or 10th bird, the game ended. In fact, you had Elizabeth. Oh no, Tom had Elizabeth on.
Tom had Elizabeth on.
recently.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was, at the heart of it were the cards, how she had a number of unique bird cards at the time, and how the mechanisms of the birds matched the theme of this specific bird. So that's what really caught my eye. The game itself evolved quite a bit since then. But I definitely remember that first play, and I was charmed by Elizabeth. It was clear that she was very talented and very open to constructive criticism, and willing to push back when I maybe said something that she had already tested or tried. I love seeing both sides of that. But yeah, absolutely, I remember that first time.
Yeah, that's because you hear about these phenomenons that happen every so often, and I think this isn't blowing smoke. I mean, I think Wingspan is a phenomenon, at least in the modern board gaming hobby, and it certainly doesn't look like it's going anywhere anytime soon. And so it's always interesting to me, these types of games, if there was a sense that it was going to be special right from. I mean, I guess you always think a game that you're interested in publishing, whether it's your own design or somebody else's, you always think that there's something there. There's something that makes it have a value that you are going to put your effort behind it. But if you just notice something really special about it, that kind of sets it apart. And it sounds like with Wingspan, it was Elizabeth and her obvious skills and the way the birds worked. So.
And I think it helped too that at the time Terraforming Mars was taking off.
Right.
And so it was that was kind of in the back of my head as a game that I really enjoyed, and I was trying to figure out exactly what made it so good. And I think part of that was the cards themselves, the vast number of cards. Every time you play Terraforming Mars, you're going to get a different set of cards, and how the theme of the cards and the mechanisms mesh really well. And so with that on my mind, I sat down and happened to play game that had that exact thing, but with a completely different theme and a completely different way of using those mechanisms. It caught my eye.
Was there any trepidation on your part at all about the theme? Because to me, that's one of the things that attracted me to it from the beginning. And I'm not saying that as I was on the zeitgeist. I saw but a lot of people are saying that this was kind of a risk. I mean, did you have any trepidation at all about a game with a theme that was a little bit out of the ordinary?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I knew how much I enjoyed the game, and I thought that gamers would enjoy it too. I think it has a really engine building is something that I think a lot of gamers enjoy. Maybe that's my perception, but I didn't know how hobby gamers would. I didn't know if they would give it a try. I suspected if they gave it a try, a lot of gamers would enjoy it, but I didn't know if they would give it a try in the first place. And that's why, I mean, controversially, that's why I made only 10,000 copies in the first print run. 10,000 is a lot of games, but compared to the number we've sold today, obviously, if I had known that then, I would have made a lot more.
Right.
But at the time, I was worried. I didn't know if people would. I thought there was a chance that it would completely fall flat because people wouldn't even try it.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, you never know until you take that first tentative step.
Yeah.
Now, this question, and this also feeds into what you were talking a little bit about before with terraforming Mars. You are not shy about talking about things that you like about games produced by other companies, and you've done a whole series about my favorite mechanisms in this or that, and most often they're games that are outside of Stonemaier. So Nathan Bredfeld asks, what's your current favorite game not made by your own company?
Yeah. I do two top 10 lists. Well, I do a lot of top 10 lists, but I do like my favorite games right now at the moment twice a year. I do two of those. And the last time I did it in March, and I would say this is probably, I mean, the games vary, but day to day almost. Like right now, I'm loving Shards of Infinity. Absolutely loving it.
Wow, okay.
That will make my top 10 list, I think, the next time I do one. But a game kind of in that vein that I truly love is Clank. And the last time I made that list, I had just finished Clank Legacy, and so it was really on my mind as a game. I was just blown away by Clank Legacy, and I already knew how much I enjoyed Clank. So that one it's definitely up there. I don't know if it's exactly number one right now, but I'm loving it. Have you played either of those games?
I've not played Shards of Infinity. I've heard really good things. Is it a deck builder?
Yeah. It is. It's a dueling deck builder. It also has a cooperative expansion, and there's a digital version of it, so it's easy to try right now.
Okay, yeah.
Anybody who played Clank?
And I've played Clank. I've played Clank in Space. I enjoyed them both quite a bit. I haven't played Clank Legacy yet. And right now I feel like it's difficult because since I've moved to Florida and I'm working with the Dice Tower, they've all gone through the campaign, and I missed out on that. So I'm going to have to find a different gaming group if I want to get in on the Clank Legacy train. And I think I do, because I've heard really good things, and I can kind of see why that would make a good legacy game. There's a nice little narrative that's already there, whether explicit or not. So I think that would be great. Ashley Kovalt asks, what is the thing that surprises you most when you're designing a game?
The thing that continually surprises me the most, and is difficult in these times in particular, because playtesting locally is very difficult right now, is that how a game plays out in my head is always very different than when I sit down with real human players, and even myself when I play it as a human with other human players. It's continually surprising me because I've done this so many times now, and I think I know how a game will play, and then I sit down and it's just completely different experience with how humans actually interact with it. So I am endlessly delighted and surprised and frustrated at times to see how that plays out. And then we're talking playtesting, not published games, but in playtests.
This is just this isn't coming from the chat. This is just a question that I have. How involved are you in the process of writing the rule book? Because to me, that's something that I think increasingly has, as somebody that's played games for a little while, that is the thing that I feel like oftentimes will set apart a good game from a great game, because that if you're struggling to get what is being asked of you as a gamer, as a player, it can really taint that first experience. And so every time that I talk to a designer, that's one of the things I ask them. And so how involved are you in the writing of the rule book?
It depends a little bit on the product. If it's a game that I am designing or co-designing, I write the rule book. And if I'm not the co-designer or designer, I typically am revising it but not writing it. But the key part of that process, really, in my opinion, is taking questions during blind playtesting from blind playtesters who aren't understanding the rulebook and figuring out how to explain it with better clarity in the rulebook. So that's a huge part of the process. For blind playtesting is about many things. It's about finding the fun, the balance, but in particular for me, I look for the rules and the intuition. What's intuitive about this game, and what rule are players forgetting over and over again? And are they forgetting it because it's a silly rule, or because it's not written well in the rule book? So delineating between those two and writing it, that's a constant fun puzzle and challenge to get that rule book right based on that feedback.
Right, I would think so, and I would think it would also potentially help with UI, with graphic design as well. It's like, this rule is integral to the design, and maybe it's not the most intuitive rule, so maybe I can help the player through some type of clever, graphic design or player board type of a thing. I would think that would be crucial there too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I often look for if people are asking me, or if playtesters are asking, if they're trying to remember something, then
Hmm.
I don't want them to have to remember it. I want that to be in the interface of the game rather than forcing them to remember it.
Right.
Yeah.
Melissa McCack, one of the Dice Tower contributors,
Oh
asks, "Hi
yeah.
Jamey,
Hi, Melissa.
what's a hobby you like to do outside of gaming?"
Yeah. I I'll rattle off a few. I love
Okay.
to read. Every night I read for at least 30 to 45 minutes, usually fiction. Right now I'm working through The Wheel of Time,
Oh,
which
okay.
is have you read it?
I have not. I've been told by at least 5 people I need to read it. So that's what you're another one that I'm hearing that apparently it's good. So you're enjoying it?
I'm enjoying it. I was in your position just a few months ago where I've been
Okay.
told many times to read it, and I love fantasy, but kind of was daunted by a 14 book series, but
Sure. Sure.
I'm going for it. So I'm doing that right now. I love movies. I like to cook, and I love to play soccer. Right now, is I don't get to
Oh,
get that part of my life in, but and indoor rock climbing actually too. I've in the last year with my girlfriend, I've got into indoor rock climbing. So I, unfortunately, that's one of the sports where you have to touch a lot of things that other
sure.
people are touching. So we can't do
Sure.
that right now, but I miss that. But yeah, there's a few things I do outside of the board game world.
Well, looks like maybe potentially soccer is not too far away. I guess the Bundesliga is that they came back, and is there a community of soccer in St. Louis? I mean, do you play with a regular group there, or
I play pickup soccer.
yeah?
So it's not, it's with a lot of people like me who like used to play in high school and
Mm-hmm.
are just trying to stay in shape and have fun. But there is a St. Louis local team, and I think the Major League Soccer is coming to St. Louis in a
Oh,
year or
cool.
two. Yeah.
Very cool. When I was in Indiana, they used to have the oh, I'm going to be feel bad. I think it was the Indiana Fuel was their name, and it was always fun to see
Okay.
those kind of the pro soccer teams in the kind of the
Yeah.
smaller markets. You know, Indianapolis and St. Louis are very similar
Yeah.
demographics as cities. So
Yeah.
Cthulhu. I don't know if this is the Cthulhu, Jamie. But that's what we have here. It says, "Hi Jamie, my son and I adore your games. Jackson, who I'm assuming is his son, wants to know which of the games that you designed is your favorite."
This one is already, it's always hard for me to answer because I enjoy them for different reasons.
Sure.
And really that when like if you and Jackson Cthulhu, if you and Jackson ever attended one of my game nights, my favorite game of that moment would be the game of ours that you were most excited to play with me. So really, I have different favorites that gravitate around based on my mood and who I'm playing with. Right, if I had to sit down right now and play a game that I designed, um, it would probably be Tapestry, maybe just because I'm still kind of, I'm excited about the expansion and things like that. But
Sure.
it really changes based on who I'm playing with. Like with
Yeah.
Mike, I'm talking to you, Mike, right now. You say you love Scythe, so that would be the game that I'd probably choose if we got to sit down and play a game.
Yeah, that would be pretty fantastic. I enjoy teaching that game because I finally feel like I have gotten to the point where I can teach it in a way because so many people are that I will talk to about it that haven't played it are intimidated because it looks, and that's one of the things I love about it is you see it on the table. It has such impressive table presence, but it can also be intimidating because there's a lot of
Yeah,
pieces and it looks like there's there's a fair amount of rules to it, but I have finally gotten to the point where I feel like I can teach it in such a way that within, you said 5 minutes, which is great. I've got it to about 10 to 15 minutes where we're playing.
okay,
Um,
nice.
and most people, when I'm done teaching it and we're a few turns in, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I thought this was a lot more difficult to get than it is." So I
Yeah,
enjoy teaching that game, and that's not the same for every game. Some games I enjoy teaching more than others. Are you a
yeah.
chocolate fan, Jamie?
I am. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
Chrissy
very
Stern
much so.
asks, "Best chocolate you have ever had?" Question mark. So
Best shot.
what's the best chocolate you've ever had? I don't know that I can answer this. I mean, I've had some
Uh,
chocolate better than others, but I don't know that I can say specifically.
I've definitely had some memorable chocolate. I enjoy a lot of chocolate. One memorable one that randomly comes to mind is here's a chocolate that I've been chasing. I've been chasing this
Okay.
experience ever since I had it. My sister studied abroad in France a long time ago, and so our family visited her when she was in France. And at a little place outside of Versailles, I had what they call, I guess, drinking chocolate. There,
Oh,
it's like a small cup. It's very thick. It's like hot chocolate, very, very thick. And I've never had a glass of like drinkable chocolate that was that good. And so every
wow.
cup of hot chocolate has compared to that and hasn't been quite as good. So someday I hope to get that again. What about you, Mike?
Was
Do you have a memorable chocolate like that?
I wish I did. I really do. I don't know that I've had. I've had, like I said, some chocolates that are better than others, and some quote unquote gourmet chocolates.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I've had one that has just been so memorable that I can recall it right at this moment. I
Yeah.
remember as a kid being excited when we would go to San Francisco and go to the Ghirardelli and get there. But
Oh
but
yeah.
I've had better chocolate than Ghirardelli. But there's a
Right.
nostalgia there. There's the location
Yeah.
and there's something about being in San Francisco eating Ghirardelli chocolate. And so I think like a
Yeah.
lot of foods, the food itself might be good and it might be memorable, but it's the other things that are surrounding it. You know,
Yeah.
food, can be a social, eating can be a social activity depending on how it is. And I think that so much of it is, sensual in the true sense of the word, where you've got the taste, the smell, the people that are around you, the what your view might be, even, I think can inform how much you enjoy something. So I wish
Oh
I
yeah.
had like this particular, this was the chocolate, but I don't. Question Manga asks, what was your career before board gaming?
Yeah, I had two little careers before board gaming. My first job out of college was working as a project manager for a medical textbook publishing company.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And then my next job, so that was like a 4-year job. And then the next 5 or 6 years, I worked as the director of operations for a nonprofit facility on a college campus.
Okay.
So I managed the staff, I managed some fundraising elements of it, and managed the budget, things like that. Yeah.
Okay. My wife is a project manager for a pharma company, so I hear project
Oh,
manager
really?
and I at least have somewhat of a sense of what that means. Although I see what she does
Yeah.
and I say that there's no way I can do what she does. But then again, I'm not. That I think that takes a tremendous. I guess that leads to a question that I have. Do you think there were a lot of
Yeah.
transferable skills there? Because what I see her doing entails a lot of organization, which makes sense as a project
Yeah.
manager, attention to detail. What do you think are some of the things that you've taken from your other careers that have helped you in board game design?
Yeah, I like that question because I those two careers and just waiting tables in college as a server at a restaurant, like that taught me a lot about customer service. Project management taught me a lot about deadlines and organizing different parts of projects at different times and keeping track of a lot of different people. Like for a medical textbook, you have a bunch of different authors that you're trying to get to give you revisions, and you're managing proofreaders and typesetters. So you're managing all these people who are very good at what they're doing,
Right.
and it's your job to kind of keep them on task and to collect and organize all the information that they're giving you. And that is a huge part of what I do now.
Yeah, I can
Every day,
imagine.
like, yeah, hours of my day are spent kind of just emailing people and making sure that they're doing what I need them to do, and also motivating them to do the things that they're very talented to do, things like that. And then my last job, director of operations, that was also me about a little about managing people. I managed a big fundraising event, so the idea of planning an event and feeling comfortable asking people to give money for something. Now I get to give
Sure.
them something in return. But even back then, I was giving them a feeling or giving them making them feel good about what they were donating,
Sure.
things like that. So that sales aspect of it taught me
Right.
a lot about what I do. Yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting because board gaming, when you focus on the actual the user side of it, I suppose, where you're sitting down at a table and playing a game. You're focusing on the creative aspect of it, and kind of the magic that we all still feel when we play a game that we love, or we're discovering a game for the first time that is just, it's that thrill of the creative process. But there's so much more to it. There's so many nuts and bolts behind the scenes, and those are just as important because they don't just show up on the shelf. There's a lot of this kind of logistical, organizational work that goes behind it. So not always maybe as exciting to talk about, but it doesn't happen without it. So
right.
I think this is an interesting question, and maybe it's one you've heard before and answered before. Ashley Kovalt asks, which game do you wish you had designed?
Yeah, I actually did a video about this last year about games,
okay.
Games that I think the topic I said was like games that I would have published if they had been submitted to us. One that comes to mind on that list is Raw. I really love Raw,
Mm-hmm.
and all these games fit into a certain category of games that play from at least 2 to 5 players, because that's a core thing for Stonemeyer games. All of our games play at least, definitely down to 2, ideally up to 5 or 6, and also down to 1 player now. I don't know if Raw plays 1 player. I doubt it plays 1. But I don't even know if Raw actually plays 2.
I think Raw is 3 to 5. Yeah, I think it is 3 to 5.
Okay. But I love Raw.
Sure.
Orleans is one that I love that also fits into that spectrum, has a nice flow to it. Those are 2 that come to I have a whole list of them somewhere. But yeah, those are 2 that jump out. Sulkin is another one. Sulkin only plays 2 to 4, but I loved Sulkin. And so and the expansion does bring it up to 5.
Oh, that's true. It does, actually. Zulkin's pretty great. I do enjoy Zulkin as well. Fred Perro says, Jamey, I just painted Scythe completely. It looks great now. Did you paint your copy? Are you a painter? Do you paint minis at all?
I am not, and I got a little lucky because the guy who paints for Meeple Source sent me a full set of painted miniatures for Scythe. So, I have a lot of creative outlets through this game industry, this wonderful game industry, but painting is not one of them. So I always love when I see people painting our miniatures and creating things that I can't do myself.
Yeah. I am the same way. I do not, well, not that I'm creating games, but I am not a painter. I do always look longingly at other people's, and I've had people tell me so many times, just do it. And who knows, maybe one of these days I will, but I just haven't. It just seems like that's another whole segment of the hobby that I'm not sure that I've got the, you know what I mean? It feels like it would be a commitment that I'm not sure I'm ready to take on right now. So I'm asking, Carrie asked this question, and I want to know, is this an either or thing, or is it a both? It says, are you designing a new game yourself now, or focusing on finding new designers to publish?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have a submission page on our website, and so people can submit games to us, but we actually reached a point a few months ago where we realized that we kind of have our schedule planned for the next 2 or 3 years, and so I didn't want to keep accepting submissions. I didn't want to tell a designer, yeah, we love your game, we want to publish it, but not until 2024 or 2023. And so we kind of put a temporary hold on looking at the submissions. We will get back to that.
Right.
But in that schedule, yes, I am actively working on an open world exploration game that's inspired by the exploration in Zelda Breath of the Wild. That's like the kind of a big game that I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
And I'm co-designing a game with someone that is almost ready. That'll be an early release next year. And I am working on a deck building game of sorts. I don't know exactly what it will end up being, but I'm working on it and having fun with it right now.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to say that I'm terribly excited about an open world game based on Zelda Breath of the Wild, but I'm terribly excited about an open world game. That just sounds fantastic. Jerry D, Mike/Jamey, weren't both of you into Magic CCG prior to board games? I will say myself, I was not. I am not a CCG player at all. Jamey, have you ever considered a Stonemaier CCG or LCG or hybrid?
That is actually an excellently timed question because so I am fascinated by the LCG format. I have
Okay.
never gone deep into an LCG. I've gone not deeper into Magic. I've played Magic for quite a long time now,
Okay.
and I have tried to play more and more casually because I think I played maybe a little bit too much in my 20s when I should have been designing games instead of just playing a bunch of Magic.
Right. Right.
And now, whenever a new set comes out, I basically just do one draft with friends because I love the design. I want to learn from it, but I don't want to get sucked into it too much. But I'm fascinated by the LCG format, and I'm dabbling with, like I mentioned, the deck builder a second ago. That's why
Right.
there's a segue there. The deck builder started out as an LCG, and then it has become more of a deck builder that's not an LCG, but it might, during playtesting, go back and become an LCG if that's what's best for the game. I'm not sure yet. But I'm fascinated by it. Have you gone even a little bit deep into any LCGs?
Not deep. There's something about the model that doesn't suit me well as a gamer, doesn't suit my gaming style because I have the collector mentality. And so
Yeah.
I have found that I get the sense that I need to have everything. And I've learned that enough about myself that I've played other people's copies. So I've played Arkham Horror, the card game, which is fantastic. I've played Lord of the Rings, living card game. I know I've played Magic. I mean, I played Magic just on a very, very, recreational level. I never got good at it. I never, did big into deck building or any of that. I just kind of stuck to the basics. I played Keyforge when that first came out, and I enjoyed that a little bit, although I guess that's technically not a CCG or an LCG. It's kind of its own thing, but it's based off that model, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate. Oh, I played Marvel Champions. I've been playing a little bit of that, although I don't own it. And I appreciate the design space, and I appreciate how clever a lot of those card combos can be, and how it can really. One of the things I think that LCGs and CCGs do well is make you feel like you have a lot of agency as a player. And you really feel like you've got the whole world in front of you. And to some extent, that's part of the problem is that I tend to get overwhelmed by choice. And I think that's just me as a gamer. It's a personal thing. Whereas for other people, that's their dream is to have the whole kind of world in front of them there and figure out this huge puzzle. So while I appreciate it, I've learned that it's not necessarily the style of game that suits me the best.
I think that dovetails into the thing that I struggled with in this design, where my preference as a gamer is for the game to start when I sit down at the table to start playing the game with friends. Whereas I think what the thing a lot of people love about the LCGs is the time spent away from the table constructing something really cool. And I love that. I had fun with that with Magic at a certain point in my life. But at this point, that the timing of when the game starts is a little bit different from my personal preference. So I'm struggling with that. I don't know if so. That's why I don't know if the deck builder I design will actually be an LCG or just a deck builder that you sit down and play.
Right. I haven't played it, but have you played Millennium Blades? Because from what I understand, that game is kind of this meta game about constructing decks type of a thing.
Yeah.
What were your opinions on that game?
I love the meta idea of that game, and the fun of that game for me was the real time trading. Like there are these real time periods in the game where you really feel like you're trading cards with other players, which some CCG players might do that. I did that as a kid. I don't know if they do that now, but that it kind of had a trading on the Tigers feel to it, and I really enjoyed that part of the game. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Dead Squirrel Stonemaier seems to like publishing different types of games. Why no narrative or deduction style games?
Why no narrative or deduction? That's a good question. You're right that deduction isn't part of it. I think part of it probably stems from my preferences as a gamer, the types of games that I return to over and over again. That's gonna factor into what we publish, and that might be right. Deduction isn't in it. As for narrative games, I have been definitely more and more fascinated by narrative as the company has grown. So in Charterstone, there is a narrative. There isn't a ton of written narrative, but there is a narrative to it. And inside the Rise of Fenris, have you played through that campaign, Mike?
Yes, I
Rise
have.
Of yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's a fair amount of narrative in that. There's a lot of story in it. You don't have to read all of it. We kind of put a summary so you can read the 2-sentence version or read the full text. But there's quite a bit of narrative to that. And in the open world game I'm designing, there's quite a bit more of narrative. Still, I'm not going to make players read big long paragraphs of text because I think that can kind of break up the flow of the game a little bit. But there is a lot more narrative than other games.
Yeah, I was going. If you hadn't brought it up, I was going to bring up Fenris and Charterstone both.
Yeah.
Cthulhu again. Your Automa, and I'm asking this because I've got a little. This is something I was going to bring up if it wasn't brought up in the chat. Your Automa system is a bar above the competition. How did you and Morton get connected?
Yeah, and I'm glad you and Cthulhu mentioned Morton because Automa is not my own creation. It is a intelligent solo system that Morton has created and that has ended up in a lot of our games, and it's in Gaia Project too.
Mm-hmm.
We did it for Gaia Project. Morton basically was one of the first backers of viticulture back in 2012. Complete stranger. Morton's in Denmark. I didn't know him at all.
Right.
And he backed the project and ended up being basically the best volunteer I could ever ask for. He was proofreading, he was playtesting, doing all the things that many wonderful backers do. And I was blown away by the support that he applied to the project. And we got to be friends somewhat from a distance. And he revealed that he played a lot of solo games, which I had no idea that was even a thing at the time.
Right.
And when I went to design Tuscany, the expansion, I said, Morton, you've got these ideas for solo games. I don't think he'd ever designed one at that point, but I said, why don't you give it a try? What if you designed a solo mode for Tuscany? And so I think that was the first Automa, and he took off from there. And it's been a huge part of most of our games since then.
Yeah, and as a solo gamer, that's yet another reason why I've tended to gravitate towards a lot of your games because they've become, in my mind, a part of the kind of the Stonemeyer game experience, at least for me as a gamer, is that, obviously there may be some games that just aren't well suited for a solo variant, and that's fine, but so many of the solo variants in your games have been my favorites, and so I'm glad Cthulhu brought it up because... Yeah. And Morton obviously has kind of taken the ball and run with it because he's become, a very big part of the solo gaming community. He's made a career out of it.
He actually quit his full-time, very good job and to do this full-time now. So, yeah.
And do you said that you didn't know that solo games existed. Do you play them at all now?
No, I don't. I do play games against the AI on digital games, but not solo games.
Gotcha. Sorry, if anyone looks like I'm blinking, I've got a little flying bug type thing that's coming at me very aggressively. All right. Original Maverick. Are there any games coming out soon that you're looking forward to, Jamey?
What are some games coming out soon that I'm looking forward to? One that has already come out that I'm fascinated by is The Crew. I want to play The Crew, but
you haven't played
I only
it
have
yet?
a two-person help. No, I can't get a copy, and even if I did, I don't think it's technically plays down to 2 players, and that's my only what I can do right now.
It might, but even if it does, you wouldn't. I don't think you'd want to play it at 2. That's. I'd be interested to hear your take, and I'm sure you'll talk about it once you get a chance to play it. Are you a big trick-taking fan?
Some and not others. Like I love the Fox in the Forest. I haven't played the duet version, but the original Fox in the Forest, I really liked that. I like Pikoko. Pikoko is one that I really enjoy. Mm-hmm. Some I haven't enjoyed quite as much. Not as much. But I'm very curious about the escalation in The Crew. How it gets a little bit harder every time you play, or a little different. I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that it's a game that I would be interested to see somebody playing it that had never played a trick-taking game before. Because to me, it makes some assumptions as a design to some extent that you have some familiarity with trick-taking. So I think somebody that played that game that had never played any trick-taking games before, I think might be completely at sea. Because it asks you to kind of subvert some of your preconceived ideas about trick-taking, and it also asks you to rely on other people around the table thinking about that mechanism the same way you do, if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
So somebody that had no background at all with it, I'd be fascinated to see how they would approach a game like that. This is an interesting
Yeah.
question. Trevor Just, Jamey, if you could publish a game based on an IP, which IP would you like to do a game on?
Yeah, I actually did it. This is one of the first longer form videos that I did. It was about IPs that I was interested in or that I pursued and didn't get.
Oh, okay.
The first one on that list that I've mentioned many times is a book series called Red Rising. It's a kind of a sci-fi dystopian fantasy mix mashup that I really love. And that's one that's probably still at the top of the list of one that I'd love to make someday. Both because it's it's not like a Star Wars level IP, but it's one
Right.
that I want more people to know about, and it's fairly popular within a small group, but it's also one that I just love so much that I want to share it with other people, and so that's one of the reasons that it's near the top of my list.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that IP. Red, I kind of want to write
It's
it down.
Red Rising.
Okay.
Red Rising. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a it's a. Mhm.
No, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it's a book trilogy, and then there's a second trilogy that's not complete yet. So there
Okay.
are 5 books so far in the series.
Oh, so it's still being written.
Still being written. Yeah.
Okay. Joseph Carnes, and I'm with Joseph on this 150%. Whose idea was it to have storage instructions on the box? This is one of the best quality of life things in board games. I can't tell you how excited I was the first time I saw that. I was like, oh, yes!
I think, well, I'll maybe take credit for it for Scythe. It may have been my idea, but it also may have been a backer idea. It very well could have been. It's been a while since I did that for Scythe. But yeah, it started with Scythe where, yeah, I think backers at the time were asking for a really fancy insert, and I didn't think that we could do that. I didn't think we could fit everything in the box for Scythe. But I
Right.
thought, okay, well, what if we're trying to fit everything in here? I will show you at least how to organize it, how to put all the stuff in the box. And we've done it since then for a couple other games too. For Tapestry, it's on the side of the box for Tapestry. Yeah. It's probably something that I took from somebody else, though. I'm sure other games have done it before we have.
Yeah, just in general, I've seen it. I've seen it obviously on Stonemeyer games. I've seen it on some other games. I think it really, it seems like such a little thing, but there for people like me and obviously like Joseph and many others, there's this sense that there is a single correct way that a game should be packed.
Right.
And I get very,
Right.
very stressed out and anxious if I don't know if it's the correct way. And so, boy, that is something that I love, love, love. Scott Dyer asks a question. I don't know. This might be too big or broad of a question, but hey, Jamey, where did you get your overall business philosophy from? First of all, do you feel like you have a business philosophy that you hold? And if so, where did you get it from?
I think there's a couple of different layers to it, and they've come to me over time. One it hit me right away when I launched the Kickstarter for Viticulture, which was I went into the project thinking that it was about me and about something that I was passionate about making, and I was hoping other people would support it. But as soon as it launched and I started to get backers who were strangers, right away I kind of realized, oh, this isn't about me at all. This is about you. This is about making something cool for you to enjoy. And so that flip from what's important to me and doing something for me and doing something for other people, that became a big part of the philosophy right then and throughout the whole company. There are other different layers of it, but the other big one that I should mention is the idea of being inclusive instead of exclusive. And that's something I learned a little bit the hard way through Kickstarter, because I did, through the first few of our projects, we had some exclusive elements to them, both Kickstarter exclusives and things that were like a custom art for backers that wasn't inherently exclusive, but it meant that there were a small number of people who got this cool thing and no one else could get it.
Right.
And so it basically kind of made me realize that I wanted to include as many people as possible in what we do. I want a company that welcomes people to our games at all times, no matter how they discover them, what type of person you are. I want you to feel welcome when you play one of our games. And so that has become a huge part of our philosophy.
Well, that question actually, and answer specifically, dovetails really nicely into this next question, because you were talking about this idea of the games being about your audience. And so this question from Halo X30, what was the most memorable reaction that you had of someone playing your game and contacting you to tell you about it?
Oh yeah. I don't know if there's necessarily one specifically, but there have been a few that where people have reached out to me and said, like the ones that really get me are the ones where someone says, this person in my life who never plays games or doesn't even really connect with me all that well has decided that this is a game that they will play with me, and we've had so many good moments together.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a wife, sometimes it's a husband, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, and sometimes it's a kid, which I don't have kids. I probably won't have kids, but that still kind of hits me in the feels. And sometimes it's a kid with learning disabilities. And when I hear that, that just really gets to me. That a kid with autism or something like that, where they have maybe a trouble learning or trouble connecting with other people, but they find that safe space with one of our games, and they can connect with their mother or father that way. That gets me.
Sure.
I love hearing that. And that has happened a few times. That's why I can't think of one specific because it's happened more than once, but I love hearing that. And I also love proposals. If people have proposed to their future husband or wife using our games and using special cards for those games, and I love that too. That's more of a joyous thing that I get to experience when people share that.
Yeah, that's awesome. See, I proposed to my wife making some custom cards from Love Letter. And now I'm thinking I probably should have done a combat card from Scythe. That would have been or an encounter card. An encounter card would have been much better.
Encounter cards.
Yeah. I think I missed the boat. But if I proposed before Scythe, so I don't feel so bad about that now. So, but that's actually great. I can totally see doing an encounter card for a proposal. That would be hilarious.
Yeah.
Richard Enlow asks, did you hide any St. Louis Easter eggs in Wingspan, or are there any other Easter eggs that you've got in your games that you're willing to share? Because I know part of the fun is finding those.
Yeah, I love Easter eggs, and we put the arch in pretty much every one of our games.
Sure.
And other St. Louis Easter eggs, oftentimes my cats end up in the games. But Wingspan,
one of your cats is behind you now, by the way, so for people that were asking.
Oh, there's Walter back there. Yeah, Walter's in a few of our games. Wingspan has been the toughest to incorporate Easter eggs into because it's the only art in the game is birds.
Sure. And
so having cats in the frame doesn't really make sense. I know cats love birds, but this is a game about keeping the birds alive and healthy, and
correct.
Cats don't always play that way. And the arch doesn't really fit in either. So currently Wingspan does not have any Easter eggs, but I need to change that. I need to find a way to slip in the arch somehow, or some cats or something. Yeah,
that would be I'm going to keep an eye out. We're definitely going to be we're going to be looking at the new, because the next it's Oceania, right, is the next Wingspan expansion. So I don't know if there'll be any in there. Maybe too late to get him into that, but perhaps the one after that. I don't know. I know we're getting close to time. Do you have time for one more?
Sure, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Nick Wagner, playtesting, because we talked a little bit about playtesting before, and I think you mentioned how crucial that it can, not just for rule books, but I'm sure for every element of game design, playtesting and blind testing, playtesting versus other sorts. He says, Jamey, are there different levels of playtesters a publisher uses for any single project? Are there only one-time playtesters that provide one metric and then multiplay testers that provide another?
Yeah, that's a great question. My thought about that, because someone actually asked me about that the other day too, because I think there is value in getting that first play feedback, the first play impression, versus someone who is going a little bit deeper into the game. It's two different types of impressions. But the nice thing about playtesters is every playtester, they're going to have that first-time experience, even if they also have a second and third experience.
Sure.
So our typical method for blind playtesting is that we go through between 3, 4, 5 waves of blind playtesting. Each time I send out the files for our games to some lead playtesters that I've vetted over time through other playtests, through a survey that I send out to our ambassadors, things like that. And they play it once with their group, and then they play it a second time and a third time, sometimes a fourth time as well, and they report feedback every time, and they send me an overall impressions report at the end of it. So I get data and I get anecdotal reports from them.
Right. And how much does that play into the iteration? I mean, in other words, I would imagine as a designer, you have to kind of walk this line between things that are player preference, and things that maybe you feel are integral to the design. In other words, how easy is it for you to give up something that you feel is not, it's not a balance issue, it's not a mechanic issue, it's just a player preference issue, but you feel like it really fits into your philosophy for that game. How willing are you to give up something like that?
It's tough at times if I feel that if I think I'm being clever and I think I put something clever in the game, it's hard to give up that feeling. But what it really comes down to, like, what people are having fun with. If they're not having fun with a certain element of the game, or they are recommending something that will make a game more fun, and I want that. That's in the end, like what I said, I want you to have fun with it. Mm-hmm. For me, I will end up having fun with it if you have fun with it. So I look through that throughout all the playtests, and it is difficult to see that through the weeds sometimes, because sometimes the way that playtesters express it, they might be expressing. I try to get them to express the why or the reason, like what's happening, the example of it, and not necessarily provide the solution. But sometimes they do provide what they think the solution is, and I have to then get to the heart of it and figure out what actually is the best solution, in my opinion. Right. So that's the fun challenge of taking playtester data and figuring out what's best for the game.
Well, that's actually, I think that's a great question to end on, because we talked about, you emphasized that it's really about the fun. At the end of the day, this is about providing an experience that provides fun. And I will tell you, this hour absolutely flew by. It's remarkable to me that we've been talking for an hour, because I've had a really good time. I've appreciated talking to you, and thank you to all of the fantastic people in chat that asked 1.5 million questions that I didn't get to. I wish I could get to all of them. I really do. But I want to give, time to answer these questions, and they've been really good questions, and I've appreciated how thoughtful your responses have been. So thank you so much again, Jamey, for coming. It really has been good.
My pleasure. Thank you, Mike, and thank you everybody who joined in. And I'll be available in the comments later when you put this on YouTube. So if anyone wants to follow up with a question, I'll be there to answer it in the comments. That's fantastic. I really appreciate that. So that being said, tomorrow night we'll have another Daily Chat. It's going to be the first time that Eric Summerer is hosting. So keep an eye out for that. Same time tomorrow. Eric will be on. I don't know if he's got a guest on or not. You never know. Eric's a wild card, Jamey. You never know what you're going to get with him. Eric is a maverick, a true maverick. So anyway, with that being said, thanks again for coming on. Thanks again for the chat. And goodbye, everybody. Bye.